I think cutting off those exports would be massively significant. I think the US cutting off its exports or its imports from Russia is not necessarily massive for Russia, but I think it sends a strong signal to the EU countries, particularly the EU countries that have a very strong reliance on Russian natural gas, that this is the next step.
Turning to the Taiwan Strait, what do you think China is learning from the sanctions against Russia?
I think both of them, particularly Russia, but also Xi Jinping, were expecting a far less unified response to this, particularly on the sanctions side. And for a Chinese regime that has tied so much of its legitimacy to economic development, continued economic growth, seeing what's happening with Russia has got to be a bit of a shock and a cause for alarm. And I think this would really, in fact, impact the way Xi Jinping sees how the world will respond to a Taiwan Strait crisis. It's always hard to tell what Xi Jinping is thinking with regards to Taiwan, but I think this will certainly play a major role in determining when or if he launches some sort of contingency in the Taiwan Strait.
Are there steps China is already taking to protect itself in this situation?
China's been preparing for something like this for quite some time. They've been preparing to safeguard and sort of make their economy more resilient against these kind of external shocks. We've seen for the last couple of years, there's been a huge deal about China investing heavily in countries around the world to build these partners that have a strong vested interest in maintaining China's role in the global economy. So I think this is a key step to protecting themselves from these kind of unified sanctions, where I'm sure there would be a major response from an invasion of Taiwan. But given China's economic influence and influence around the world, I'm not entirely sure how unified that response would be. I think there'd be a lot of countries and corporations that would be a bit more reluctant to pass sanctions against China.
And for Russia, its weakness is its oil exports. Is there equivalent for China?
A huge amount of China's vaunted economic growth over the past several decades has been fueled heavily by foreign direct investment from countries around the world, particularly in the West. So these are all things that could be targeted. Their energy sector as well. They still rely very heavily on imported gas and resources. So China may not have the same single vulnerability that Russia has, but I think they'd still be very vulnerable to these kind of unified sanctions.